Hey guys, you're watching C1 my name is AJ, and we are back on another episode of Redstone from scratch, the series where I'm teaching you Redstone from the very basics and working our way up to things such as the fully automatic sorting system that we done on episode 00. Now you guys have been putting down in the comment section below all of the tutorials that you want me to do, like secret doors and stairways and minecart stuff and automatic smelting. We will do all that. I've added every single one of them that I didn't already have to the list, and we will go through them all. But people have been saying, why are we starting from the very basics? What's the point of this? And the reason why I'm starting with torches and working our way up is because it's all good being able to know how to do this. Like on episode 00 we built this and I showed you how it worked and I told you how it worked. But if that's all you know about Redstone, just how to copy a tutorial, then you're a little bit limited. If we, however, go through from the beginning and I teach you what torches do and I teach you all of the gates, not only will you guys be able to build this by yourself, but you'll also be able to apply other things that you've learned along the way to build your own things in your own world. You'll be able to see a 3x3 door and you'll be able to know why it works in that way, how the double piston extenders work and how they retract and how everything internally works, instead of just being able to build the end product. You'll know why things work along the way. So today's lesson is a very useful one, and this is going to be used a lot in a lot of different builds, a lot of different redstone stuff, but most importantly it can be used easily and implemented easily into your own survival worlds, and it's called the T flip-flop. Now originally the most common design of a T flip-flop is this, and what a T flip-flop is it's basically in one way the easiest way to explain it, the wrong way to explain it, but it's the way that people will explain it mostly, is it turns a button into a lever. So as you know, a lever will turn an output. Let me show you quickly in case you don't know. I'm pretty sure you all should, but if you don't know, a lever and a button, lever button. A lever will keep a redstone signal on, and a button will only temporarily have it on. Okay, and then you've got to press it again. What a T flip-flop does, or one part of a T flip-flop, is it'll actually make the button stay on. It'll make the output stay on when you push the button, and then when you push the button again, it'll turn the output off. The more important use of a T flip-flop is that you can have multiple inputs to it, which you will get into further down the line. So this is a very basic one, and the bonus with this one, and why it's the most commonly used one, is because it requires no sticky pistons. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll hit the button, boop, and the lamp comes on, and then you hit the button, boop, and the lamp goes off. Now this, as I say, this is a good one because it uses absolutely no sticky pistons at all. So let's have a crack at building this. You're going to need 2 normal pistons. You're going to need 2 pieces of redstone for the actual T flip-flop itself. You're going to need 3 torches for the T flip-flop itself, and you're going to need a block to build with, and that should be it, I think. So what you're going to do is you're going to place a piston down here, leave a gap of 2 in the middle. Leave a gap of 2 in the middle, sorry, and then place another piston down there. In this hole, you're going to place a redstone torch. Okay, and then you're going to place a block either over the torch or over the other one, it doesn't really matter, and place 2 blocks on top. So you get like this sort of corner shape. Put a torch on each end, and that'll extend whatever piston you have the block like near, and then place the redstone on top. Okay, oh yeah, and a button obviously, and that's it. So now when you push the button, it'll not be over the torch. Like if we have a piece of redstone here, you'll be able to see a little bit easier. So it's not over the torch, so it's not activated. And then when you push the button, it goes over the torch. So now the torch is powering the block. Okay, so the torch is powering the block, which can then let the redstone travel through the block into the redstone dust. Now, there is something cool that we can do now that we've got TU19 and the redstone block, or the block of redstone. Let me just remove these torches for a minute. Take this block away. You can actually remove the torch now if you want to, if you've got enough redstone, and just place a block of redstone there by itself. So now the the block of redstone is its own power source, so it'll turn on and off. As you can see, it uses no sticky pistons, which is very beneficial. The only trouble with it is it's not very fast. Like, you push a button, you have to wait a while before it comes on. Push it, and now it's off. Okay, so it takes a little while. So another T flip-flop, which looks a lot simpler, and is a lot simpler, is this. Now this is actually made up, sorry about that, this is actually made up of two separate things. This first part here is called a monostable circuit. And a monostable circuit is basically, we've got a sticky piston. This one requires sticky pistons, which is why it's a little bit more uncommonly used in survival, at least, because people have trouble finding slime sometimes. Not quite sure why, because I don't have any trouble, but I know some people do. But a monostable circuit basically means that when we hit this button, it's going to light up this redstone, which is going to extend this piston, but because it's going to extend the piston at the same time the redstone is passing through this block and being drawn out by this repeater, it's going to be such a slight amount of redstone that gets through that by the time this redstone repeater lights up, the block is going to be in the air, which means the redstone can't get through, which ends up with this piston on the end here, which is also a sticky piston, sort of fluctuating, just doing a quick burst, but it's very, very quick. So if we hit it here, on, and off. So it's like instant. It is so instant. So you can see what's going on here. If I push this button, if you watch this block here for the first time, as you can see, can you see that repeater just barely light up? You just see it flash on. And that's because the redstone can only just get through in time before the block gets pulled out the way. And this end piston here, because the redstone is so sharp and so quick, it actually pushes the block out and then retracts the piston, but it retracts the piston so quick that it doesn't have time to bring the block back. So on the second push, it brings the block back, and on the first push, it actually pushes the block away. And in this case, I'm using a block of redstone. But again, you could do the same thing as we done on the original T flip-flop back there, is you could use a normal block and a redstone torch down there, if you were tight on redstone, let's say, and then it works exactly the same way. But now, instead of the redstone block being its own source, it's using the torch as the source to come through the block into the redstone. So, if you are tight on sticky pistons, let's say you've only got like 1 or 2 slime balls and you're trying to save them, this way is exactly the same as the last one, apart from it only requires 1 sticky piston, this end sticky piston here. This first one can be a normal piston, and that's because we're using sand, and obviously sand or gravel has gravity applied to it, so when we push the button, the same thing happens, but when the piston comes back, the sand actually falls. Okay? So you can save on a little bit of slime balls if you like, and again, I've used a block of redstone at the end here, but you could use a normal block with a redstone torch down there. Now, the next one, again, this is another type of T flip-flop. This is, I don't need to show you how to build that one, do I? I'm pretty sure you guys can see it's just a piston, same as that one, it's just a sticky piston down in the floor. Apart from that, everything else is on show. I don't need to do a tutorial on that bit, I hope. I think you guys can do that. This one, now, the reason why I'm showing you this one is because it actually uses some of the new stuff that we've got in TU19. It uses droppers, it uses hoppers, and it uses comparators. But it's not very efficient when it comes to actually using materials. I mean, the hopper itself is a chest and 5 pieces of iron. The comparator uses a lot of resources. The droppers are like just a bit of redstone and some cobblestone, but it is very compact. It's smaller than the other ones. So if you're tight on space, you can build this one, but obviously that does use some more resources. So I'm going to show you it in action first, and then I'm going to explain to you how it works. Oh, poop. That's not what I wanted to do. I hit my finger on the trigger. Dropper into there. So, on this one, if we push this button, the redstone lamp comes on, and if we push it again, it comes off. Now this might confuse you a little bit because there's no redstone dust or anything. There's only a button and a comparator as far as like actual sort of redstone style stuff goes, but it comes on and it goes off. And what this is these 3 here are droppers. Okay, and I'm going to show you how to build it in a minute. I'm just going to show you how it works first. So you can have anything in here. You don't need a block of redstone. I could put a dropper in there for... It doesn't matter. You can put any item in there. A piece of dirt, a piece of cobblestone, whatever. But what happens is when I push this button, this dropper here is facing up. Shall we build it while I explain? That could be a good way to do it, couldn't it? Comparator and hopper and a torch. And that's all we'll need. And a button, sorry. So, the first step, place down this dropper facing upwards. Okay? So it's facing towards the sky. And then if you crouch, you can put a button on the side. Now if I just chuck something in there, if we push this button, as you can see the button just popped out at the top then. So if it fires the button out, and we're gonna crouch down, and we're gonna put another dropper facing this way towards us. So now when we hit this button, the item in this dropper is gonna go into this one and then fire out this way. Boop boop. Okay, and that's because this button is powering this dropper, and because it's next to it, because this dropper is right next to the button, it's also powering this one. So it goes through, there's still redstone power coming to it, so it fires it out. Just pop that back in. So this dropper down here is going to face back into the one with the button on it. So although you can't actually see the opening, it's facing that way. Okay, so the mouth is on this side of the block. And that's what's going to put it back into it, because we're going to put a hopper here. Oops. A hopper here to draw it down. The reason why we're using a hopper and not a not a dropper pointing down, like if we went down here, crouch. The reason why it's not a dropper is because if we used a dropper, it wouldn't come back round, because this button is only powering this block, and this block. It can't power diagonally. So if we use a hopper instead, the hopper will just let the item drop through it. So you're going to have to get on top, you're going to have to crouch, and you're going to have to place the hopper on that block there. Okay? And that way, the hopper points down. So now when we push the button, the item goes into there, it gets fired into there. The hopper then drops it down into this one, but by then, if I hit the button, by then the redstone signal from the button has run out, so the item is stuck in this last one. Okay, so originally it was in there, but when we push the button it goes round, ends up in this one, but can't get back into this one because the redstone signal's run out. So this comparator here reads and says, yes, there's something in this dropper, I need to give power out. That's what a comparator does. So when there's not an item in it, the comparator says, nope, there's nothing in it, I'm not powering. And then when it says, yes, there is something in it, it'll give a little bit of power out. So then we can hit the button again, and it's going to draw the item from that one into that one. And then when we hit it again, it goes up into the hopper, down into this one, back into there. And then I just used a redstone lamp just to signify that it was on and off. Okay, bear in mind, guys, very important here, if I turn it on, bear in mind that if I get redstone dust here, it doesn't travel far. It only travels one block, and that's because there's only one item in here. The more items you put in here, the further it would go. Okay, so if you had like a stack in there, the further it would go. But obviously if you had a stack in there, it wouldn't be able to get all the way around. So if you wanted this redstone to actually go a far distance, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have the comparator, the comparator going into a repeater, which then like resets the signal to be at its full strength. Okay, see how that changes? 1 bar, and then that will do the full 15 length. Okay, so then here, so that's the tutorial on how to do that one. It's very compact, it's very small, but it does take up a lot of resources. So here I've got a T flip-flop in action, a use for it. And most common use for it is actually doors. Some people use pressure plates to let themselves through doors, in and out of doors. Trouble with pressure plates is that mobs can set them off, and you don't want mobs chasing you into your own house. However, mobs can't push buttons. Pretty sure you guys all know that. So with this, we can push the button, and the door opens, and then we can go through it, push it, and the door closes. Now, you don't necessarily need a button on the inside. Let's say this is the outside of your house. You could have a button to open the door, but then to close the door, if you wanted, you could have a pressure plate. So once you walk in, all you do is walk over the pressure plate, and then that would turn it off. Obviously, it's not hooked up, so it's not going to close it. But instead of having the button on the inside, you could have a pressure plate, so then you don't actually have to push anything on the inside. Boop. Ta-da! And it'll be the same on the way out. You could just walk over it to get out, and then you could push the button to close the door as a sort of mob-proof locking system. And on the back here, what I've done is I've decided to use the hopper and dropper, the dropper hopper T flip-flop, the dropper hopper flop, the dropper hopper flop on the back here, just because it's a little bit smaller. Obviously, if you guys were tight on resources, feel free to use the other one. And also remember that this doesn't have to be put onto the side of the building. You could hide all of this redstone underneath the door, but obviously it's a little bit tough for me because I'm on a super flat world. So I've just built it on the side here. But yeah, you could hide all of this underground. As you can see here, we've got exactly the same thing as we had down there. We've got the 3 droppers and the hopper. If I stand this side, it might make more sense to you because that's the way that we built it. So there's the hopper, dropper, hopper, flopper, with the comparator coming out. And then I've just used a couple of redstone torches and redstone dust to try and keep it as small as we possibly can. But this redstone here is powered by this button, okay? And this redstone here is powered by this button to close it. So we've already learned in episode 1 that if a redstone signal goes into a block that has a torch on top of it, like how we've got here, the torch will turn off if the block receives signal. And obviously when we push this button, it lights the redstone up, which powers the block, which now is going to invert the torch here. And because the torch is inverted, it's going to wait until the torch comes back on to activate the dropper. So at the moment, the sword is in the top here. And then if I hit the button, boop, okay, so the torch goes off, the torch comes back on, and it activates the comparator and goes back round. And then when you hit it again, the torch goes off, turns back on, and activates it again. Now, that might sound like I was going a little bit round and round then. I was actually getting somewhere with it. Oh yeah, the only thing with using this T flip-flop in this fashion with a torch to redstone to torch to redstone, with the torch here as well, is that it makes it a little bit longer. As you can tell, there's a bit of a delay. Okay, it's not fast, and the reason for that is because when you push the button, the redstone's lit up. It takes a little bit of time for that torch to go off. It then takes a little bit of time for that torch to come back on to activate the T flip-flop. It then takes a little bit more time for this torch to turn on, which takes a little bit more time for this torch to then turn off to activate that redstone signal that then just runs underneath the door. Okay, it just runs to the block, the piece of dirt that this door is standing on. Okay, if I change it to a different block, you guys might be able to see a little bit better if I use jungle wood, for example. So jungle wood there, as you can see, the redstone goes into that jungle log there. So I mean, very simple. Why is that log facing? What? The log's facing that way, but the log looks like it's facing upward down here. Have I done a glitch? I'm going to have a look at that at the end of the episode. As you can see, the redstone is just going into the block underneath the door. But it does take a little bit of time. It's not very fast, because obviously the block has to go through... the redstone has to go through a lot of inverters, which we learned on episode 1, to actually activate it. So, very small and compact versus very fast versus no sticky pistons and very little resources required. So it's up to you which one you use to build your stuff with. I do, however, want to find out what's happened here. So that's the end of the episode, guys. Oh, it's facing that way. Of course. No. Oh well, that was a bit of a brain fart moment. And then finally, just very, very quickly here, I've got the very fast monostable T flip-flop here. And it's showing you that a T flip-flop can be used with multiple inputs. So, as you can see, we had 2 there. Like on the examples, we only had 1 button to activate it and deactivate it. On this one, we had 2 buttons, 1 on each side to activate it and to deactivate it. But this is just showing that you can have as many inputs and outputs as you want, as you want. So that worked. That turned it on. That turned it off. And that turned it on. So it's just an example to show you that you can have literally as many inputs as you wanted into a T flip-flop, and it'll still, one button turns it on, or one push turns it on, and then any button pushed will turn it off or on, depending on what way it was on first. Anyway, guys, so that's it for this episode of Redstone from Scratch. Learn about the T flip-flop. We're now really starting to move on. We'll be starting to be able to get into actual builds relatively soon. The next episode there, I've just sort of started laying out. It's probably going to be the RS Nor Latch. I know it sounds completely complicated. It's really not complicated. Be sure to tune in for that. But we'll be moving on further and further away. I'm sort of keeping it in a cool line here, aren't I? Each lesson's in a line. We'll work our way further and further out, and we'll start getting into really cool stuff. And we'll start doing a lot of stuff that you guys want me to build in tutorials. You know, doors and hidden places and just cool things you can do with redstone farms and such like that. Anyway, guys, if you enjoyed it, hit that like button. It really does mean a lot to me, especially on a series such as this where it's new. I don't think that there's that many redstone tutorials that are teaching you from the very start and teaching you in a way that you guys are going to be able to use redstone for yourself and be able to create new stuff with the knowledge that you'll learn from this series. I really hope that you are learning from it. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and we shall see you in the next episode. Bye!